So this is from Van Jones on CNN. The police who killed Tyree Nichols were black, but they might still have been driven by racism. It's just what?
And he's the same one at CNN. He's the one that occasionally you're like, oh, Van Jones said something I agree with. He writes, occasionally.
3 decades ago, when 4 white LA police officers were videotaped beating Rodney King, the public outcry was heard around the world. In fact, I got arrested for the first time in my life during protests that followed, and I subsequently dedicated my career as a lawyer to helping to sue rogue cops, close prisons, and reform the criminal justice system. What happened to King was horrifying, he then goes on to mention, but at least he survived. Tyree Nichols did not. Yada, yada. 5 former Memphis police officers fired for their alleged actions during Nichols' arrest. Alleged, and there's a video of it. Have now been indicted. I was in law enforcement during the Rodney King incidents as a chief. By all accounts, he was good. How do we explain Nichols' horrific killing alleged at the hands of police who looked like him? From the King beating to the murder nearly 3 years ago of George Floyd. Blah, 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 blah,
How do we explain it? It's extremely
Black people are not immune to anti-black messages. One of the sad facts about anti-black racism is that black people ourselves are not immune to its pernicious effects. At this point, I just want to give a round of applause to Van Jones for this sophistry at coming up with a reason why these black cops were actually anti-black racists for beating up another black man.
It's not just him, though. It's like Jameel Hill. Like, this was a common take on Twitter today about this. Like, as soon as they saw that picture where all 5 cops are black, you're like, well, now we got to go to plan B. Like, the original plan was racism. We're like, well, now we're going to have to explain this a little more.
But look what they did with Zimmerman. Remember? Right. They were like a white man. It's like Zimmerman's he's Hispanic. I don't know if he's Mexican.
He's Cuban, I think.
Cuban. There you go. He's and they were like, well, he's a white Hispanic. You're like, what does that mean? Are you kidding me?
So
come on, man.
What I'm getting is Van Jones is suggesting that these dudes, these 5 cops, were serving the white master and doing its bidding.
Exactly.
But it's just so, it's not a white and black thing. This is what drives me nuts, man. Yeah, there are corporate overlords. There are people with power, but I mean, maybe I'm blind and that there really is a racial thing. Like they annihilated the Native Americans. They were like, they're savages. They didn't even consider them human. Like they were just killing anything that wasn't white or whatever at the time. They had black slaves and they were killing the red.
Listen. There's a reason why these things emerge in human civilization. You live in a small village of 100 people. Everybody's orange. You know that when you see a person and they're orange, you're like, oh, they probably live in my village. I can trust that. It feels safe. 100 miles away, there's a village where everybody's green. One day you come across a green person, you're like, that I've never seen that person before. I don't know who that is. They're not from my village. That's a threat. That's dangerous. So over time, as humans start coming closer and closer together, we start living with people with different backgrounds, different heights, different skin colors. We start to go like, oh, that didn't matter at all. We're now humans. And so over time, we start to actually move away from this, from a lot of this. In the United States and a bunch of other countries, they don't. So you end up with, yes, race is often an issue. Even in the United States, people racially profile. Even Mike Bloomberg went on about how he does this. And then you end up with, like, I can understand to a certain degree what Van Jones is saying, but they're taking it in a direction that I think is disingenuous. There have been black cops who, on numerous occasions, have been seen arresting and beating young black men. And then the woke activists try and claim, like, oh, the police did this, and it's white supremacy and it's racist. And then when you point out, like, hey, I don't think the race was the issue if the cops themselves were black. I think it's these guys are in a high crime neighborhood. Yeah. They're black. The people who live there are black, and the cops are concerned about the level of crime. I don't think the black cop is looking at the black kid and being like, he looks like me. Like, what's he thinking? Therefore, this guy's more dangerous. Yeah. No, I think what it is it doesn't matter if you're white. It doesn't matter if you're black. It matters if they're like, hey, we're sending you to a crime scene. And you're like, okay, now you're going to be on edge and be like, I'm in a dangerous neighborhood.
I feel like, what you're saying makes me think of all of the diversity and equity recruitment. Like, there are a lot of police stations or, police departments across the country that specifically were like, we want to make sure our force represents the people that they're policing, right? They are of the same racial makeup. They are related to the community. They have a better way to relate to them. Like, I don't know if Memphis has this policy in place, but if they do, does this tell us that, like, that doesn't matter, that people who are prone to be cruel and violent will do it no matter who they're looking at?
Imagine if these guys were like diversity hires. Like, imagine that, like, like this is part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion. But they hire these guys.
But maybe, I remember there was a lawsuit, I think it was out of New York, where they purposefully hire stupid people to be cops. And they said it's because they hire smart people, they get bored, they quit. that's their excuse. But you hire people of low quality, you're going to get low quality output.
Interesting.
Do you guys
People that
remember?
won't question.
I'm just totally going to bring this up. Do you remember when Ben and Jerry's tweeted about what is it called, the 1350?
They tweet a lot of stupid things. It's hard to
So
keep track.
this is the point I'm trying to make. There are a bunch of people who they were even posting this the other day when we were talking about with Nuance Bro, crime in Democrat cities, and he mentioned the racial disparity in crime and all that stuff. And I'm like, I think there's a lot to do with history, poverty, and then we look at the surface level, or I shouldn't say we, but a lot of people, and they're like, hey, I notice there's a lot of crime in this community, and they tend to be this race or that race, and it's also like, yeah, but there's a lot more context there that we need to bring up. I'm not saying race plays no issue or anything. I'm just saying historical, like slavery, generational wealth, poverty, lack of education, these things play a much, much bigger role, in my opinion, than anything else. But Ben and Jerry's, and this is a really important point, because the woke people do this, and it's exactly what this is. Ben and Jerry's posted on Twitter something like, the African American community is only 13% of the U.S. population, but they comprise something like, 50% of prison inmates, yada, yada.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's the same meme that you'll see, people post on the internet that, I don't want to say every single person who posts that is a racist, but are associated with being the right or racist. The left believes the exact same thing. Yeah. The left wants segregation. The left is blaming racism, anti-blackness on why black cops attacked a black man, because they can't help but view the entire world through the lens of race. It's the woke law of projection. You have a white liberal who is extremely racist, who then says, you know what? You're racist too. And you're like, me? I'm not racist. And they're like, yes, you are. The reason they're saying that is because they think everyone must think the same thing they do. They can't imagine that other people have different beliefs.
It's a cult.
So everybody projects. Everybody thinks the way I view the world is the way everyone else views the world. Now, I shouldn't say everybody. There's a lot of people who understand that they don't, probably tend to watch shows like this or Crowder or 6XM or even Barnes, like to be on the opposite side of the wokeness. But these woke people, very much so, are racist and then project thinking, if I think this way, so must everyone else. Then they go to you and tell you you're racist, and no matter what you say, they won't believe you, because you must think what
Well, if
they
you don't,
think.
that's White Fragility. Best-selling
Exactly.
book. That's literally what that book is based on.
So you end up
Immediately.
with Van Jones writing the only explanation as to why 5 black men beat another black man was because of white supremacy, when it's just like, maybe it's because they're cops, maybe it's because they have a short fuse because of the things they witness all day, every day, and they were angry, and it's nothing to do with the race of these men, because they were all black. I'm sick of everything having to be someone's race. Like, look, I'll put it this way. Sometimes it is race. Sometimes it is a white cop hating a black person. Sometimes it's a black cop hating an Asian person. Who knows? I'm just saying, it annoys me that woke people especially, but others as well, immediately assume the cause of and the correlation is, well, it was the race. And I'm like, dude, come on, man. Yeah. For all we know, this guy was banging dude's wife.
Well,
okay?
Jameel Hill said the silent part out loud. This is what she said, what you were saying about the police. I need so many people to understand this regarding Tyree Nichols. Several of the police officers who murdered Freddie Gray were black. The entire system of policing is based on white supremacist violence.
They just gotta keep making it up.
But that
It just proves
like they're trying. She's saying get rid of the police. That's what she said.
It's amazing. It's someone walking up to you and saying, listen, the sky is pink. And you go, I'm looking up and the sky is blue. Actually, that's because you've got a lens distortion perspective. And that proves actually the sky is pink. No, I can see it, dude. When you come out and you say, did you know that the cops who killed Freddie Gray, some of them were also black? I'm like, so that basically disproves your whole narrative. No, it actually proves it.
They can't lose. It's brilliant. They got quite the scam going.
I'd love to. I wish I had that kind of societal power to say something that proves the opposite. Just be at a casino and it's like, it's like, hit me, 25. Actually, they changed the rules. Jacks are now 4. Oh, you have 21. I keep winning.
It reminds me, wasn't there a movie where a guy was like the only one in the world who knew how to lie?
Yeah, Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
I like that movie a lot. That
Never seen
good.
it.
What's that one
What's
called?
called
The Invention of Lying.
Yeah.
So he's broke. So it's a world where no one can lie, and then he's broke. He can't pay his rent. He's going to get evicted, and then he goes to the bank, And then it like he's like, I need to withdraw money, and they're like, I'm sorry, you only have a certain amount of money in your bank account. Then it zooms into his brain and it shows like a neuron fire, and then he goes, no, I have $800 in my account. And she goes, that's strange. It doesn't say that. Must be a mistake. Okay, I'll withdraw that money for you, because there's no lying. So it's like, and then she gives him the money, and he's like, whoa. Yeah. And then he basically becomes like king of the world, because he can get. Movie.
Is it funny? He's funny.
It's I think it's a great movie.
He's hilarious.
It's like a movie that makes you think, kind of, but it is funny. Movies in this universe are people sitting in chairs reading history, because there's no fiction. So then he starts writing fiction, and people are like watching these movies all excited, thinking it's real.
It's kind of like historically, like through the eons, that the lying, deceitful one, monkey or whoever in the culture of our great ancestors were like the ones that were able to weasel their way into power by hiding the food so that the other ones couldn't find their food, and they're like, where's our food? Then they starve, and he's like, ha ha ha. And so it's in our genetics that you need to deceive to get into power. But what we want is an honest leader, but you need a strong society to support an honest leader, or the leader will just be taken advantage of and destroyed by evil and subterfuge. It's so easy to burn down what's functional, but it's so challenging to create it, to build it. Yeah. So I think we're on a path to create an honest leader right now, it seems like.
Think about building a machine and all of the fine parts that go in it, and then someone can just take a piece of bubble gum and throw it right in, the whole machine breaks. True. And then you're like, I can't get that bubble gum out. Something that's so stupid and easy to make, some bubble gum, some tree sap, some rubber, destroys, 50 years of your work. Think about like how you could gum up a car. Think about how you could pour sugar or some other garbage into the tank. It's like so easy to tear a machine down. It's so hard to build it.
And it's easy to lie about machines when they're not functioning, because like it can cause panic. If you're honest about the mishaps and the dangers of society, people can freak. If you don't understand the danger, but you're honest about it, that's scary. Like, hey, there's a problem I don't have a solution for. And that can cause panic, which can cause the dissolution of the system. So you're better off historically lying about it and being like, everything's fine. Close your eyes. Everything's fine. And if it burns, it burns. There's no one there to come after me for lying. But I think now, one, we have the tools like the internet where we can solve these problems, climate change. We can withdraw the carbon, turn it into graphene. We can regrow the plankton in the ocean with iron fertilization. We can regrow the coral reefs with cultural microfragmentation of coral, where you break it into a bunch of pieces and then it all grows at once together. We can build space elevators and elevate, we can colonize. There are solutions, but it's a matter of organizing them and communicating them calmly. And I think if we can do that, we won't need to lie to each other.
Well, and everyone has to agree that like those things are worth doing, right? Like if you have a small group of people and they collectively have the same values and they're like, yep, we pick him to be the leader and he has our best interest, it's easier. But when you talk about large scale issues that everyone has a different role in, right? Like this comes up with, global warming all the time. Well, this country is really trying hard to reduce all of its emissions, but this country doesn't care about it. They don't prioritize it, and they are actually emitting more carbon into the atmosphere. Like, at what point do we get people to work on that because they actually have their own self-interest for their own communities?
I just want to go back to this Van Jones thing real quick and just say, to pause real quick and just entertain this thought. We had someone in the chat say, I heard that Tyree Nichols was banging some dude's wife. And we're like, whoa, I mean, we're wondering if there was something personal here, but we can't verify that. CNN's running a story being like, oh, actually, the cops were white supremacists. It's like,
the first one's more believable.
This is the point. This is the point right here.
We're the mainstream media.
So it's like, if you came to me and said, here's a video of a man wailing on the face of another man, I'd be like, damn, what do you do? Bang the guy's wife? Because it is a simple solution to assume they had a beef. But then imagine a news anchor says, actually, we think the real reason is that black man swinging his fists is actually a white supremacist. So it's like, okay, so you want me to believe, CNN, Van Jones, that those 5 black men were anti-black racists with internalized white supremacy as a more plausible reason as opposed to homeboy bang dude's wife.
Dude, yes. Dave Chappelle did the skit with Clayton Bigsby, but he couldn't even pull it off. He had to make the guy blind. You can't just, he couldn't be like, if he saw his own skin color, then the joke, it wouldn't even be funny. You're
like
it's
they
so
want
ridiculous.
you to believe that like racism and internal race. It's like it's more deadly than COVID. You know, it's like literally
Yeah.
the most dangerous thing out there that infects your mind,
clown
and it
world.
can take a black person and make them actually hate black people and do something. This is what they're saying with a straight face, which is amazing.
But I will say racism is disgusting. When you talk to someone that actually is really racist and they say it and you're like, what? What are you? It's gross. But the thing is, Van Jones is softening it and making it so you don't.
He's a racist.
Well, and I'd say one further, like he wrote this for CNN, it has the opinion label on it, right? But then someone else at CNN is going to say, here's some factual reporting. And some people believe it was actually motivated by white supremacy. And they'll link to his article. But then it'll continue to be cycled and cycled and cycled until it becomes part of the normal narratives.
It's
these cops who were motivated by white supremacy beat this guy. Like it's a kind of nasty cycle of absorbing these guesses at what's going on.
I agree, it's gross. For me, I would phrase it as racism is annoying at an academic level, and it's gross on a personal level. Like we have a bunch of friends of the show who are a variety of different races, and just thinking about the fact that like a racist person would say something negative about any of the guests we've had on who are not white. I mean, these are good people. You know, these are people of good opinion. We have people like the Hoteps come on. We have people like Andy No, I know you mentioned earlier on, but we have people with a bunch of different backgrounds. And I'm like, these are all people who are good people that do good work, that agree with a lot of your opinions. And then you'd have someone who just says, because of the way they look, I have a negative view. I'm like, that's the stupidest thing. But the reason it's annoying to me is that when you look at a situation like this with Tyree Nichols, we're asking ourselves, what is the context and circumstance that results in a conflict like this? It is not because the men internalized white supremacy. That makes literally no sense. It's a strange crackpot conspiracy theory. But it's annoying to me because I'm like, I'm trying to solve a problem here. And it's like you're coming out. It's like watching someone with a Chinese finger trap pull as hard as they can. And you're like, my guy, just stop. Okay? It's not the surface level solution on this one. Sometimes maybe you could probably pull so hard you'll rip the thing apart. But we're trying to figure out why this happened. And I don't think it's because Tyree Nichols was banging a dude's wife, but that certainly makes more sense. It could simply be because the cops are frustrated and angry. Maybe something happened earlier in the day. Maybe Tyree they said it was reckless driving. Some people are disputing that. We have no idea. But when Van Jones comes out and says, it's because they were racist, it's like, bro, we're not going to solve the problem of what's happening with bad cops like this. I'm not saying all cops, but when there are bad cops, if you just say racism, it's like, okay, actually that cop was doing illegal deals and bribery. You know, if we're going to actually hold them accountable, we need to hold them accountable for the things that are leading to this, not just go, racism and throw the papers.
Well, it's the
in there.
racism industrial complex. If racism disappeared tomorrow, think of how many people would be unemployed. Our economy,
Every Democrat,
every nonprofit would just go kaput. There would be no need for half of them. How many politicians would lose their jobs? Like I'm on Twitter today and I'm seeing like when I see Kamala Harris and Joe Biden talking about this guy, I don't know. It just really angered me about the situation in Duxbury, Mass, where they will never mention those 3 innocent children they will never mention them, but they will make it seem like this is the biggest deal in the world because racism is the biggest problem confronting our country. Why would they want a cure for it when they can just keep selling the antidote and keep getting elected off of it?
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.